I hear everything one way, even though they say I don't pay attention. I do everything the same as the way I did it last time. Still you see my life is pitiful, that I'm selfish and predictable. Though I have no voice to disagree, I don't want to change. Give me time to I know you want what's best for me. Believe well enough alone. Give me time to Then I'll find what's best for me, even though it's still unknown. Never stay long with regret. Letting go that you may flag. All the silence that keep me coming back. I'm the one that you hated. You know, the one you didn't want to believe. The one that you hated. Take a look at it now. I'm the mess you
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Dad Talk today. It's Dad Talk tonight. We did some Dad Talk earlier today, and I usually do a replay around this time, but I felt like doing something a little bit different tonight. So I hope you guys will hang on in there with me. It's going to be a little bit of a different episode of Dad Talk. It's not going to be the child support is big business. I didn't mean to gaslight you or trick you. I'm probably going to talk some about that tonight. I definitely will. If you got some questions, concerns, or comments on that particular subject, we will be doing that tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've got more voicemails on the subject of child support than I have all the other voicemails combined. I mean, it was nuts, man, hearing some of these situations that these guys are going through. If you would like to join that conversation, 762-441-0281. Tonight, I wanted to come on and open up a little bit of my heart to you. It's been a rough week, man. I was watching last night as the show was replaying, and we were talking about these men that were going through. Hopefully that sounds a little bit better now. I had to get my microphone hooked up. But we were talking to these guys that were male victims of domestic violence. And that is a very tender subject for me, for many reasons. Okay. I haven't been doing Dad Talk for like the past 3 months. I did that because I needed to get a break. I needed to hear about anything else than family law because it was about to drive me straight up the wall. You hear these stories every single day, man. And there's sometimes the only reason I'm getting on here is to see if there was somebody that needed that motivation to continue on, because I was also that guy that needed that too. Unfortunately, you know, I made Dad Talk to be the platform that I wish I had when I was going through these issues, guys. I had a weak moment when that subject started because it got, dude, it triggered me so bad. And I thought to myself, I made this platform for these guys that are going through it because it's what I wish I would have had. I sit here in this chair now after going through some of this trauma and hearing these stories, ask myself, I still need that platform. But many times when we're on here, we're getting these stories out. We're trying to promote the awareness, get legislation changed, whatever. And we have our weak moments too. Yeah, I saw the comment last night. It was like, is it just me, or does this guy sound like he's his voice is always shaky, or he was crying? I did cry before I got on that. Let me tell you why. I've said it a couple of times. Said it earlier today. There's some of these subjects that we talk about that I don't have personal experience in, and those are a little bit easier to cover. Being a victim of male domestic violence was something I do have experience in. Let me tell you what that's like for a man. You feel like you have no options. I'm going to be as real as I can with you right here, guys. I know what it's like being that lost guy, wondering if I stay here, what happens? But if I call and I try to get some solutions, what happens? Mine was even different. Person was pregnant. Oh man, then what comes? Not only are they not going to have sympathy for me or my situation, but now I'm the deadbeat. I had to abandon, but I didn't know how to leave. So 3 years doing this. Next year it'd be 4. Okay, that I've been doing this, and I've been very, very little or quiet about details of my own personal life. Not because that I haven't experienced them. It's not about me, man. It's about making something for you guys. But there was something that I recognized doing those shows this week. Let me give you an instance. The first day that we did that show, I was begging people, if you have been a victim of domestic violence and you're a man, call. I want people to hear what you've got to say. Because if you don't call and tell your stories, I'm just a guy on here flapping off at the mouth that looks like he's got some vendetta or that it's not a real problem. I know these guys are out there. I know they're hiding. There was many of them that wrote, I'm here, Eric. I've went through it, but we're just watching. I don't want to relive the trauma. The whole time I'm sitting here relating to my brothers because I realized there was trauma there that was locked up. But after the first day of talking about these issues and guys calling in, the second day we had twice as many calls. Now, you know, I probably need to be talking about a lot of different subjects on this show to keep it new, fresh, and interesting. I get it. I'm not here to make a show. I want to make a difference. Something told me, Eric, you need to do that again the next day. We did it the next day. What happened? I got twice as many calls as I did the day before. Seemed to be heating up a little bit, right? Today, what happened? There was triple. They just kept coming in. But let me tell you what that was like for me, guys, if you don't mind. I've spent the past 3-4 years of my life creating this platform to give people a place to vent, to where they can talk to people that understands what they are going through. I don't want this to sound selfish. That's what I want it to be for me tonight. I'm going to use the platform myself. I rarely get to do that. Let me tell you what that was like for me. I get in here and I listen to these guys talking about being a victim, calling, nothing happening, or not reporting it because they're afraid of what's going to happen. Do you know what happened to me? Here is the detail. I got on my personal Facebook and made a little rant because I was, dude, when I got off of that first show talking about male domestic violence, I went out there, I stood in my yard. I didn't know which way to turn. I didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know what I wanted to say. I was just trying to keep myself together. It got me that bad. That's what trauma does, guys. For anybody that doesn't think PTSD happens with these situations, you have never been through it. And it's hard for the people to understand it that hasn't been through it. But for those of you that have, you know what I'm talking about. Let's get a little bit more into it, okay? So I do this episode and I got to replay it later on that night. So it took me about 4 hours to come down from that, right? I called a couple of friends and I was just sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had somebody to talk to. I've got a story too. I'm listening to all these guys' stories and a lot of their stories are mine too. But who do I have to talk to? Guys, when we come on here and talk about the lack of resources for men and the lack of sympathy, I know what it's like to walk a mile in your shoes. And so what did I do? You'll have to excuse me. I get a little heated. I'm just being real with you, man. I hope you don't mind a little emotion because I got a lot of it that I want to put out tonight. I didn't promote this show. I didn't make no spectacle or anything about it. I had told somebody, I was on the phone talking about the conversation, and I said, dude, I haven't had this happen in about 3 years, but I am about to do something. He's like, what's that? I was like, I'm just going live. Because people need to hear this. People need to hear you. They need to hear these stories. I've been silent too long. You've been silent too long. They might not care. We care. And that was why it was driving me crazy, man. I was soaking these stories in like a sponge. But I tell myself, we got to have this replay later on tonight because this is an important conversation, man. People need to hear it. We're not doing this. What show wants to go out there talking about male domestic violence? We're not going to be breaking any records, making a difference. You guys are going through it. If nobody else is going to do it, we've got to. So I wanted to do that replay in hopes somebody would see it and it would encourage more guys to do it. Why am I pulling back the curtains right now, telling you what I'm telling you? Because I'm hoping that there's going to be somebody else empowered, encouraged to do the same thing. I did that replay, talked, and I thought, okay, I already know it triggered me a little bit earlier, right? It triggered me a little bit earlier, but I'll be okay. I got to get on there. I got to read these comments. I got to be there for these guys. I uploaded it. It played at 8 o'clock. I went on there and put a little disclaimer like, hey, this triggered me. You know, I don't want this. And it made me think, like, what does it got to be like? What does it got to be like being one of these viewers listening to dad talk, hearing about this trauma and it triggering them? Because it just did it for me. And that's not what it's about here, guys. That's no. Let me tell you this about dad talk. Okay. We talk about the lack of resources for men. There's no domestic violence shelters, not hardly any place for you to go vent. Society hasn't gave you that platform. This is going to be that platform. That's why it was created. Okay. It's not a show. That's this platform. All the memes and all that other crap, that's just hoopla, man, to help promote it. I can't tell you how many people came in here looking at one of those, but then they end up on these. And I've created some great relationships doing this. And I'll probably go off in a few different tangents. Just bear with me. I get on this replay, 8 o'clock. I'm sitting here watching the comments, trying to hold it together, man. I get out, go get in my bed. My wife is in there. She's like, Eric, what's wrong with you? It's like, nothing. I'm okay. I'm okay. Next thing I know, guys, it was like there was something stabbing me in the chest. I thought I was having a heart attack. Then what pursued was a panic attack. Then what pursued was an asthma attack. I couldn't breathe. Like for a whole hour. My wife sat there with me. She is amazing, dude. Amazing. She's been my platform, right? She's the reason I'm still here. Because there was many times that trauma hit like that, guys. And I said, it's not that I don't want to do dad talk. I have busted my ass for this thing, man. But I can't. Because I'm hearing stories. And for any of you guys that's been through this, this brings back those stories. It brings back those memories. That's why the Johnny Depp case did what it did. Yeah, he was a celebrity. At the same time, there was many people saying, ooh, my story's playing out on screen. But this guy got justice. How about for us guys that don't get justice? How about for us guys that don't get any media on it? But that's what I was stuck with. Those emotions, panic attacks, anxiety. Why? Why? Again, past 3-4 years, I've been on here promoting the issues. Dad talk became my way to fight because I didn't have the money to fight in court, right? I didn't. So I worked on this endlessly. You ain't calling this guy a deadbeat, even though they try. I went to almost every state in this country fighting for legislation and trying to raise awareness about the situation. Now you tell me a deadbeat that's going to do that. But I didn't have the money to fight in the system. And every time I went and consulted with somebody, the numbers that they threw out at me was just, you feel helpless, man. You feel helpless. But that's also a lot of what we feel on here when we hear the stories and we want to give solutions to people. And we're not the other organizations that are getting all this money, especially the VAWA funding and stuff, to create these resources for guys. We are doing what we can, but you want to help. You want to help. It'll drive you crazy. But here I am. I've done all that. And it helped me to block out my own trauma. But on that particular episode, the door got open and it came right in. I'll tell you, it was a dangerous moment for a second because I thought I was losing my head. But I knew we was on an important subject, so the next day we got on here and we did it again. We listened to more voicemails. This time I brought on Robert Garza because unlike tonight, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to speak, and it's just flowing right out. But I was having problems with those particular episodes because when I would hear it and hear the stories, I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to say to you guys. I didn't. We're on live right now. You know what that's like when you're just at a loss for words and you're sitting there on the screen? I didn't know what to say. Luckily, he helped, right? But we did that, got off of that, man, went right out in the yard, sitting there staring into space again. Man. Last night, replay, same thing. I didn't have the attacks as bad as I did the night before, but it was bad. And I called my buddy. And, you know, people try to give you encouragement sometimes. And you're like, I know that they're looking out for me and they love me. That's why I called him. And I'll give it to it. It was my buddy, Mike Whitney. That guy has been my rock, dude. In a time where he needs some prayers right now, guys. You hear me? But that's my brother. I've got as many people as I can count on these two hands that if I needed one hand, that if I needed something, they'd be right there for me, whether it was to be here physically or to be there for me when I needed to vent. He's been one of those guys. And for years, he's been in this community running a hotline for parents that are on the verge of committing suicide. Do you know how draining that is? But he sacrificed that time to do that for those guys. And he was there, but he said, Eric, and I was like, Mike, I just don't know, man. I don't know if I can continue. Not because I don't want to, but it's taken a physical toll on me. 3 months ago, guys, I got back from my trip that I did out west. I spent 4 days at the doctor. The next week, I was at a specialist. I was out there covering the John Mass story. I was standing in the parking lot where this father that came on my show was killed, shot when he went to pick up his kids. I have a very big attachment to that story. And when I got back, I was sicker than a dog, man. I had been gone for 2 weeks. I did over 6,000 miles, 3,000 of them in a car. I think it was even more than that. I don't know. In those 2 weeks, it had messed up my head, my eustachian tubes. I was going to so many different elevations. My head wasn't adjusting, which if that wasn't bad enough, my ears popping and my ears ringing, I'm looking at this subject matter that means so much to me. I never got to meet him before he was in the casket. Not in person. I did on here. And I didn't realize the importance of the story when we was doing that night, what we're doing right now, what you callers are doing when you call in about these situations. I didn't realize the importance of that until that moment that I'm in that funeral home. We're making this documentary. And then I'm standing in this parking lot, in this shopping center. Here is a guy. What is one of the things that we are told? We are told that if you feel like there's going to be dangers at custody exchanges, you need to go do it in a public place. That's what John did. It was in a public place, grocery store parking lot, sitting here, cars pulling all around. That's where John was gunned down. A lot of these custody exchange murders, where are they going down? They're going down at police stations. They're told that this is the things that you do to protect yourself. With the system this broken. In many of these instances, they have no way to protect themselves. And if they feel the red flags or they know something's going to go on, most of the time nobody listens to them. Not until the threat's made, right? Or till it's too late. But again, the toll. I was this close, man, to saying, I got to walk away from it. I've put my heart and soul into fighting for this. I think many times as family law advocates, I guess is what we call ourselves, movement, community, I've heard many different things. We think that if we hit it really hard, we're going to get some steam. And then what happens? You go out there and you go 100%, 100%, giving it my all, man. 43 states, 1 year. You know how many of those states we went to 5 or 10 times? Gave it our all, because if we do it, we're going to get it. And then you're having to sit back and look in the rearview mirror and say, man, we're a lot in the same place. There's lives that are being lost, right? And I know I can't blame myself for that. We're doing everything that we can, but it feels like a loss every time one of these guys commits suicide or they get their lives get taken at these custody exchanges, right? So at 3 months, I had to do what I had to do for my peace of mind. I really did. It was going nuts. I had to step back from it. It was a little over a week ago. You know, Facebook had sent something wanting me to make content. I was like, I'll keep posting memes. I don't know that I can get on the podcast. I had did like 2 podcasts in 3 months. The only reason I came on those is because an attorney was wanting to come on and answer you guys questions for free. You don't see that often, right? I wanted there to be resources. That was the only thing that dragged me on here. But we got this idea of the call-in show. That's something I've wanted to do for a long time. We had that early on Dad Talk until Christmas night. One night, there was a caller that called up, one of the crazies, and they ruined it for everybody. And I said, there's no way to vet this. This is a highly emotional subject. And so we had to nix the call-ins. So now we got the voicemail line. Dude, it's working out amazing. Now we are getting a chance to hear more of these stories and what you guys are going through. But I had that, you know, I came in, I wasn't even into it, a week? And we start having these conversations about male domestic violence because it was requested. And then this happens. And I'm like, man, I haven't even been into it a week. And I'm already back at the point of burnout and can't hear anything about family law, fatherlessness, Title 4D, or any of that stuff again. It's going to drive me insane. You should see how bad I've grayed when this gel isn't in my hair. I love you guys, man. I really do. I really, really do. And I believe in this cause. But Mike Whitney told me something. He said, Eric, it's in your biggest moments of that weakness is where you're going to find yourself. That's going to be the moment that you're going to look back on. And you're going to say, that was the moment that it clicked. And at the time he told me that, I thought he was crazy. Because it was just, I think, yesterday or the day before. When I got on there and heard these guys speaking, and after that traumatic episode the other night when the PTSD was eating me alive inside, right? I realized something. It took us coming on here and having this conversation and people hearing from other men that have been through these issues to encourage more men to reach out the next day. It took those men doing it to get more men to reach out the next day, and so on. I don't know who's watching this now, but I thank you for being here. I don't know if you followed all those episodes, but if you did, thank you. I know they're hard to listen to, but I'm about to make a point. You know, I tried to stay away from my personal because my kids still have the parents. I don't want to put them through this. I know what I've been through. The last thing I want to do is take that pain and trauma and say, hey, here you go. And also the other thing, all the different stigmas that have been put on you. Let me tell you some of the things people that try to use against you. Eric, you've never been through family court. Yes, I have. My last situation, I haven't seen my child in about 4 years, guys. I had to cut contact. Oh, man, do you know how easy it is? Do you know how easy it is to create narratives with something like that? If people only ask questions and they listened to understand other people, I cut contact because I was the guy having the panic attacks and the asthma attacks, and it was the only thing that kept me here in the game. You hear me? It was the only thing that kept me here in the game. I was trying. I was there. But when it became all-out warfare, every time I tried to reach out, I couldn't do it anymore. How many of you guys out there fighting this battle, watching this show, have been at that point where you say, I don't know if I can do it anymore? I know you're out there. You want to know why? Male suicide. Was it 7 times higher in men than in women? And you know what? A lot of that, most of the time, is dealing with family court. You got a guy, slave to the system, man. Put him on child support, alimony, keep him away from his kids. Every day he wakes up, he is just existing to feed money back into the system. And so he can see his kids. And half the time he's getting once every 2 weeks or once a month. Slave to the system. What a life that is, man. And they feel like no matter how hard they try, they don't get anywhere. And then when they get frustrated about it, where do they go? They show up here on social media, or they go to try to put their story out there. People ashamed, oh, don't be posting all that. Dude, like seriously, where do you expect these guys to go? Maybe if you had some of these domestic violence shelters for men, they wouldn't be going online. Maybe if you had some resources for these guys, none of this. It would still happen, but it'd be a little bit better, right? Sometimes the battle gets so tough that they say, I can't get it away. Especially you male abuse victims. Do you know what that's like, feeling like you're trapped inside of a cage? I'm being abused. Most of the time you're being abused physically. You're getting it mentally too. If I report, it's going to be me. If I leave, I'm going to get stigma. What do you do? What do you do? Tell me, what do these guys do? Let's go back. Let's go back. Hopefully you guys are okay with me talking right now. This is the reason I'm on, and this is flowing out as you're seeing Eric Carroll. Okay? I've missed this guy. I haven't been me since about the first 6 months of this podcast, and I started going to political conventions. Because once I started going to political conventions, I was told all this hogwash about the movement. You got to dress a certain way. You got to look a certain way. You got to say a certain thing. Don't mention child support. Don't mention Title 4D. Don't mention any of these things. And everywhere I went, I wasn't carrying myself to have the conversations. I was in the suit and the tie and feeling like I was having to rub the elbows and do anything I could to get the conversation out. It was very Mr. Rogers-like. You seen some of those interviews, man? You seen some of them? The stigma and the conversation about dads is so bad that the only way to get some of these people to speak about it, let me tell you, you have to be so fake. Hey, everybody, welcome to Dad Talk. Today, I'm sitting here with so-and-so. How are you doing? Let me ask you a question. Are you a dad? What does being a dad mean to you? Now, what would that be like if you didn't have that chance? Let me ask you, sir, if we got some legislation that gave dads equal rights, would you get behind that? There's a lot of the dads that don't need that. We need to believe in the best interest of the child. I had to have those conversations over and over with people that I knew in my heart could give 2 shits about this cause, man. But there was that hope that we were going to reach that person that was going to do something about it. So that's what I've been. I've been on spin cycle for the past 3 years in this political arena, which is what the movement did up until Dad Talk. Something clicked today. Something clicked over those past 3 days. The answer to this movement, the answer to the problems that you're going through right now, it's not politics, man. You're fighting a dirty arena. Unless you got tons of money to get PACs going and to funnel donations and to make it beneficial to them, it is not politics, guys. The answer has been in front of our face for so long, and I am embarrassed to tell you, that I was working so hard and so caught up in it, I haven't been able to wake up and smell the coffee. The answer is in being you and empowering other people to speak, owning your story. There is a narrative against us, dads. Narrative. You've heard me say that many times before. Crush that narrative. You know what sucks about family court? Who's watching right now? I don't care if it's the president of the United States, of course. I mean, this statement would go to him. Anybody in the world. I don't care if you're attorney, judge, pastor, doctor, whatever. There is nobody out there that doesn't have skeletons in their closet. Nobody. We've all made mistakes in this life. What's that like when we go to family court? Guess what he did in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Oh, in his first marriage 10 years ago, this is what he was doing. Back then, it's not about your ability to be a parent. Let's be honest. It's not about the ability to be able to clothe and feed and take care of that kid, to provide. If you're going to be a loving father, no. We are in here to throw mud, bruh. We are in here to completely assassinate your character. Now, what happens if you got an empath parent in there that would really like to see some type of peace in there? It's not going to happen. You know, the attorneys that tell you, man, if they agree, we'll be all right. But, when they start pressing conflict, the bill is going to start racking up because we got to come in here and we got to fight all this. At what point do the courts turn around and say, enough of this? Enough of this. The whole thing has been a sham in the first place. The whole construct of family court is a sham. Guys, let me speak to you. Whose kids are those? Those kids we're speaking about on here. Alienated, whatever. Whose kids are those? Those are your kids. It's not the government's kids. Why is the government telling you what to do with your kids? Now, if you're a parent that is abusive and that's on drugs or some of these things, they need to go to family court. For most of you guys that just thought you was getting in a relationship, thought you was in love, maybe you was young, something happened, and you can't be in it anymore. It could have been your fault that the marriage broke up. But still, you have a kid. You still got to parent the child. You might not be able to get along with your ex, but at that point, where did it become the government's responsibility to tell you what you can and can't do with your kid? Let's think about that facade of family court. There's people that will shame you when you don't go through it, but there's also those same ones that promote it or say you don't need to go. It can go both ways, right? I have a hard time getting on here and telling guys that that's the way that they need to go. You want to know why? I know what happens there. I don't know that I believe in that. Not anymore. Politics. What am I supposed to do? I think we did a lot of trailblazing. I don't care what side of the political aisle you're on. We've talked to them all. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. I've gotten trashed every step of the way, no matter what I do, because politics are so divisive. If you're not talking to my political party, then you're doing something wrong or you're a crook. I mean, I've heard it all, dude. It happens if I talk to a Republican. It happens if I talk to a Democrat. It happens if I talk to a Libertarian. We took it all the way up to Donald Trump. I got criticized for that. I have took it all to several of the Democrats, dude. Who is it you want to talk to? We went out there and we did it. And I honestly had a lot of hope. I wasn't doing that just to do it. You know, the crazy thing about politics, guys, let me tell you how fake it is. Fake. Go to one of those conferences right now, get you a suit and tie, go around, take the pictures, post them online, and somebody is think that you've got some type of political clout, and then that's how people build political careers. They get donors, they get money, and they outspend each other. How many times have you heard somebody say, oh, we need more money, our opponent is outspending them? It's election season. How many text messages have you guys got? How much trash mail have you got? They try to outspend each other because it's about name recognition. Whoever can advertise their name the most, that's usually the one that you still have in your head. Now, you might not think that plays a lot into it. That plays a lot into it. There's a reason why people advertise. It's not a multi-billion, trillion-dollar business because it's not effective. Think about it. You might be going down the road somewhere and you saw a commercial and you know, hey, Wendy's has got this value meal for $3.99. Where did I hear that? Oh, I was listening to the radio earlier. Oh, or maybe it was one of those little pop-up ads. They're annoying. Luckily nowadays we've got a lot of ways that we can skip over it, but it's no different with politics. It's about who can get their name out there the most. So what happens with that? A lot of your good candidates, there are some good candidates out there. I say candidates. Most of the time, they're candidates. There's some good ones in office. Most of the good ones are candidates and they never make it in office, right? That's just the bitter truth to it. But there are some good guys out there, but you need the majority to change these laws. You're going inside of a political arena filled with attorneys. Now, if you change this, you change these laws and you got equality and you start getting families to heal and get back together. Yeah, you went through this bad season, but here's equality. Do what's in the best interest of the child. The best interest. Hey, think about that, judges, politicians. We're talking about the best interest of the child here. For mom and dad not to fight, for them to get equality, for them to have equal time, and to decrease this conflict. You've got a different definition of the best interest of the child. Let's be honest. That's my definition. But who loses with that equality? And they've got a perfect plan. Most of these dads that are paying that child support, they're paying that alimony, they're going through this domestic violence, or they're not wanting to speak or whatever. You know where they're at? They're at work. They're out there, a slave to the system, feeding it. It preys off of them. So excuse me if I can't continue to go look at the suits and the ties and play political theater. I'm not going to do that in this movement. I love you guys too much. I want this to change too much. We've got to stop playing political theater. The answer is right here, you guys. Our stories. I want this platform to promote your voice. But again, if I'm on here by myself, I'm just a talking head if you're not bringing the stories to the table. Imagine trying to fight a war without an army. Most of these guys are broken down, beaten up, broke. All right, dude, I don't know how long this one's going to last, but you're still here, so follow me. Do you know there's so many different things you can tell when somebody is a new advocate or just now going through this or wanting to fight the cause? One of the number one things you're going to hear is we need a rally. And they'll even advertise it as a Million Father March or something like that. And I just put my head down and I'm like, oh my God. And if you tell them it's a bad idea, they think that you're talking down on the concept of it. Go back to what I just said. Where are those guys at? They're at work. They can't show up. They can't. They're a slave to the system. How do you expect them to go up to the Capitol? How do you expect them to show up in Washington, D.C. and march? They can't. They are at work. They are feeding the system because that's what the system has made them do. Oh, that sounds depressing then, right? So what do we do if we can't do the marches? You can show up here, can't you? Anybody that's watching this, you can like, share, and subscribe it, right? I'm not telling you to like or share my podcast because I want to be popular. I could go do a lot of other things. And trust me, there's been many times I've said anything but family law. But you never know when this is going to come across the person that this is the one thing that's making them hang on. Do you know how many messages we get from people that you're never going to see comment here? You're never going to see them comment because they're afraid their ex is going to see it. Somebody's going to use it against them. But they're observing. And they said that the only thing that's kept them on this earth is what we're doing here because they feel like they are around people that understand. For so long, these guys have been alone and feel like they don't have anybody that understands. And that's why I say the answer is here. It is here. And part of doing that also was me trying to find back my roots. I want to be David fighting Goliath. And I had people that tried to get me to run for office and all that when we was playing political theater. I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be an attorney. I don't want to be an expert. I don't want to be a coach. I don't want none of that crap, man. Guys, you know why I'm here. I just wanted to be a dad. That's why it started, and that's why it remains. And God help me, if something was to happen to me, somebody better keep this platform going. Robert, Mike, you hear me? Because there's the other concern I've had to think about. For everybody that knows this system is crooked, or that's been through it, and that's been screwed, there's somebody over there that thinks it's amazing. This gets a lot of opposition, guys. And they got a lot of funding. It gets dangerous. I talked about it earlier in today's episode. You do your homework. Nancy Schaefer, Mark Angelucci, go look at what happened to our warriors that stood up for this cause. They're no longer here. I had PTSD a month ago, standing in the parking lot where John got shot. People started pulling up beside us, wanting to know what we were doing with the cameras while we was up there shooting. And I'm telling you guys, it was like my life flashed before my eyes. I was like, Eric, you're standing where one of the guys on your show was murdered. You've made a documentary on it, and you're standing here. That's some of the thoughts the movement doesn't get to see. And it was real. Luckily, for the first time, we had a camera crew, and they stepped right in. And one of the guys said, he's like, Eric, I was in the military for years. He was like, you got PTSD, brother. He said, you had the same look on you as my brothers and more. Guess what? We are at war. They are controlling your children. That's how it starts. There is a reason masculinity was attacked. Look at the fatherless statistics. Look at them, guys. There is a reason they attacked masculinity. And it's working. It's working. This is not the same world we once knew. These kids need parents now more than ever. People might say, oh, the older generation, they've always talked about the younger generation. They're okay, stop it. You're being a boomer, you're being whatever. One thing, I got respect for the boomers. It was a lot of those guys that busted their ass, and they're the reason that we're here right now. Did I agree with everything? No, but I learned from that generation. I prefer to hang out with them more than I do my own generation any day, to be honest with you. But I want you to think about this. In the last 100 years, even in the last 20, since 2000, think of how technology has advanced. How much different are kids? I mean, it's more than any other time. Between cell phones, the way, transportation, you name it, social media. There's so many things coming after our kids. We got kids that don't even know what they are anymore. And then that's a subject we need to talk about on Dad Talk. But some of these subjects have got to the point to where if you talk about it, then you're going to get censored. They're going to cover your mouth. My episode yesterday on male domestic violence on YouTube was taken down. Listen to that, guys. I'm putting a lot into this. A lot. I see the stars and I see all that, man. And dude, thank you so much. It takes a lot to run this platform. I haven't asked for money and I can't tell you when. Do I need it? Yeah. Yeah. I've been doing this for years, man. I wasn't getting paid going around doing all that lobbying. No. I should have been. I worked harder than any lobbyist I've ever seen, but that's not what it's about, man. Again, making a difference. So thank you. Every time that you guys donate those stars and things, they help. The super chats, thank you guys. At the same time, for those of you that can't, the guys at work, the ones I was talking about, you can hit that like button. You can share that. You can get that out there. If you are watching this right now and you know somebody that's going through these issues, why have you not sent it? Will you please send it to them? That's all I ask, man. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes in there. And you know what? I talked a lot about what I've done over the past, 3, 4 years. I wouldn't be nowhere without the guys that were behind me. I wouldn't. There is a lot. I wouldn't be streaming on this right now if it wasn't for Melissa Isaac. I wouldn't be here without Robert Garza or Cheryl or Mike, Jeff Morgan. Oh God, man, I don't want to leave any names out, but those are some of the rock stars that just don't get enough credit. So I'm not up here trying to toot my own horn. Those guys have been amazing. And there's a lot of other amazing advocates on there. I'll have another one on with me tomorrow. He showed up. Tomorrow's conversation is going to be a controversial one. And that's why I want you guys to show up. Trust me, I've already got the voicemails talking about child support, and not in the good way. When I say not in the good way, I mean not the ones that support what we are talking about. Ones that think you're a bunch of angry deadbeats that don't want to pay child support. All your facts are wrong. You're ridiculous. This movement is ridiculous. It would sure be nice to have some of our guys here when they show up. I'm going to have the conversation regardless. I actually kind of want to hear from some of the opposing views. Those are the ones we need to be talking to, right? Not in the echo chamber. But another thing, dads, we are all imperfect. We all have things. We've all made mistakes in our lives. And I think sometimes once you go in family court, it feels like they are throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you. You're in this war with your ex. She is assassinating everything about your character. Look, man, it's not just about how you can parent the kid. It'd be about, oh, man, you went and ate at McDonald's today on your lunch break? You could have gave that money to your kid. I don't like the way, look how he does his hair. He's not a man. He's a boy. He's a boy. Oh, he could get a better job. He's working 60, 70 hours a week. If you got a better job, you wouldn't have to work so much. Guess what he did years ago? And that's dude, again, men aren't afraid to express their feelings. Men are afraid of their feelings and emotions being used against them. Same here. That's a lot of the reason why I've kept shut. Because you know what happened? That's where the scar tissue comes in. In order to get in a relationship, if you really want to love somebody, in order to love, you start with communication, talking to them. Through communication, you build trust. And through that communication and trust, we give vulnerable parts of ourselves. The good, bad, and the ugly. It's a person you love. They're going to protect that. Now we have a kid with them. Maybe you get married. Now you're going through a divorce. You're going through a breakup. That same person that you went through that process with, the communication, the trust, the love. If it's one of the kind that we're talking about, guys, now they know every way to push your buttons. And you got these guys sitting there questioning every bit of their existence. We need to have some support groups in here. I'm working on it. I've got so many ideas. Part of the challenge with doing what we're doing here is every day there's a new idea. And then so you got 100 ideas going on what you want to do with the community, no funding to do it with, and trying to keep up with the one that you had from a year ago. That's what it's like. That's what it's like being an advocate. But we need a support group. We got the Dad Talk Today support group. Go there. It's free. You can post, you can talk. I'm not here to support the group. I'm talking about a chat where you guys that are watching could be sitting on here with me and saying, let's do this together. When one of our guys is down, we lift him up. We are our brother's keeper. We are. Because nobody else is. Nobody else is. Do you know how, and then some people say, oh, you go talk to family. Go talk to family. That's not always so easy, guys. There's somebody that's being alienated. There's somebody that's went through a divorce, bad relationship, whatever. Well, that was a part of their family too. Your family was a part of their family too. They're being alienated from those kids. They've got emotions. You're wanting to talk to somebody so you can handle your emotions. Now I'm going to go talk to people that's got emotions in it just like me. Sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do. Let's talk about drug addiction. I know a thing about that. I was an addict years ago, years and years ago. Been sober for almost 15 years now. But at one point I went through that because I was going through these problems early on. And just like I started having the attacks and everything when I was starting to get into the trauma, that was really when I started seeing the effects. Nobody is born wanting to be an addict. Nobody. People look at them and say, oh, they just need to get up and get over it. That is one of those fights, just like family court. If you haven't been there, you won't understand it. These are people that are dealing with issues that many of them don't feel like they're mentally able to deal with it, so they mask it with substance. Many of these guys, when they go through divorce or they go through these issues, are going to be picking up the bottle. They're going to be hitting the alcohol or whatever helps get it off their mind. I was that guy. I did sober up. It's not a flattering detail, but dude, that empowers me. I've had people try to use that, even though it's like 15 years ago. Oh, he used to do this or he used to. It's like, dude, go ahead. I'll talk to you about it. Sitting here talking about it right now. That empowers me. I got over that. But you know what sucked? Is when I did get over it. All of those emotions that I had masked for so many years, I had to deal with them. And then that was when anxiety started. I think that's what goes on with a lot of these guys. They don't have anywhere. So then they start masking. There are so many masks that we men put on. They think it's our pride. They think it's our ego. What it is just trying to keep your head on your shoulders sometimes, man. Sometimes you just can't deal with it anymore. You just can't. And that's okay. It's okay. You're going to have those weak moments. Those weak moments are what is putting you through the fire, getting you ready, man. One of my favorite sayings I made, dude, I'm telling you. Moments where I did not want to wake up. I didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. I've had them. This was years after I got sober. I think I was a great husband, great father. Yeah, I got my hangups. Who doesn't? But no, dude, like I thought I'm, pretty good guy. I start going through divorce out in the middle of nowhere and find out my family's about to break up. Well, I just signed for a new house a couple of years before that, thinking it was going to be paid with 2 incomes. Now I'm finding out my family's about to break up. I might not be able to see my kids. Do you know what that depression is like when you've lived in a house with your family, with your spouse that you created? And every day you come home, you have your routine. One day you show up. Nobody's there but you. You're left there with today and what you're going through. Those are bad moments, guys. And unless you've been there, you won't understand what it's like. You take away a guy's family. You can talk about the money. You can talk about everything else. That's secondary stuff. You take away a guy's family and leave him with nothing but himself and his emotions. It's a dangerous place to be. Why do some of those guys pick up the bottle? That's where it comes from. Because they feel like they got nothing else. And those are the moments that become the hardest, especially being kept away from your kids. Those moments were meant to break you. You hear me? Those moments were meant to break you. Let them be the ones that make you. I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. It's kind of what tonight's whole theme was. Just last night, the night before, I went through these conversations with these male victims of domestic violence, got triggered, went back to parts of my own story, and it almost broke me. Even though I talk about this all the time, it almost broke me to the point that I said, I can't have any more of those conversations. If I do, it's going to drive me crazy. It was meant to break me. But for anybody that wanted me to go away or wanted this podcast to fail, I'm going to use that Key and Peele comes to mind. You done messed up, AA Ron. I learned how to take my pain a long time ago and turn it into purpose. I needed to experience that pain again. It brought me back, not from the guy that's on the suit and ties trying to go and do the politics and get the legislation changed for this movement. Don't get me wrong. I want that. But I'm not playing political theater anymore. No. I'm a rebellious son of a preacher rock and roll guy. I want to come on here and relate with you guys. I don't want to be a leader. You can have that. I don't need no labels. The only label I ever cared about was dad. That's why we're here. Right? If you've got some of these things that we've talked about tonight, these hangups or whatever it is, maybe you got something in your past. God, dude, who doesn't? Don't let that keep you from finding your purpose. Okay? I would love to just sign everybody up. We need volunteers. We need volunteers. This is everybody's going to have their job in this movement. It is not my place to tell you what your job here is. Nope. I'm not going to be like the family courts. I'm not going to dictate to anybody. But every one of you have purpose. You do make a difference. You might think right now, if you're one of those in those really dark moments, why am I here? Why am I breathing? What am I doing? How am I going to continue? You might not see it, but in somebody's life, especially your child's, the one that you're fighting for right now, even though it might seem like you're not there, you do make a difference and you do matter. How can we not, as a society, let dads know that they matter? Why has that become such an unpopular topic? They need the narrative. Because if you feel shamed, if we give you labels, it funnels you to their system. To hell with your system. I don't know about you guys, but we need a revolution. Are you proud of me, Mike? He said that ever since I've known him, but it really fits. We need a revolution. I do believe we're about to give birth to a movement. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. 3 years ago, year ago, going to those conferences, even though we talked to big names, woo-hoo. It wouldn't have happened. What we're doing right here, right now. I might get made fun of. I might get mocked for coming and putting my heart out on the screen, but I'll be damned if I'm going to tell you guys to do it, and I'm not going to do it too. Right? So I hope you guys will show up and support. This was real dad talk tonight. This was me being me. Not feeling like you have to do the smoke and mirrors. It sucks, man. It sucks. Going out there feeling like you have to act a certain way, say a certain thing, because if I do it the wrong way, they might not listen to our calls. If you don't want to listen to our calls because the truth offends you, I'm not the problem. And if you don't want to listen to it and you don't want to change it, we'll find somebody who will. Can you guys agree with that? Don't get me started on politics. Stop voting for the lesser of two evils. These are guys that have no idea, man. No idea what it's like to have these conversations and to walk a mile in your shoes. Even they talk about the same stuff all the time because that's what gets the votes. Right now, the big thing is gas. Gas prices suck. Let's be honest. You know, especially when it wasn't nowhere near this much, but they can get people to react off of that. That gets money. Women's rights, the abortion, economy, all these other things. They can talk about that. It's going to get money. It's going to get votes. Father's rights, making sure parents are in their children's life, that's going to lose us some votes. We might lose our women voters. I take it back to what I was telling you the other day when I was a promoter, booking rock venues. I worked with some big bands, man. I did.
What was the number one thing I was always told to do? It wasn't about the bands that I was getting. And it wasn't about the talent. Cater to women, because if you cater to women, business will thrive. And that's what they do in politics too. And let's give the caveat. You know, it sucks so bad. You go to any of these feminist pages or these pages that talk the opposite of what we do. There is no need in being politically correct or feeling like I have to always protect myself or whatever because of a narrative. No, they can say what they want. But with dads, we constantly have to say moms too and all this other stuff. Dude, I have helped numerous moms while I've been doing dad talk. My biggest supporters are moms. We got some down there in the chat right now. I will never deny that this can happen to them. But they got places. They got places to speak. You don't. Why are you here in their space? I ain't talking about you good ones, the ones that are here to encourage or that's got somebody that's going through it. I'm talking about these people that call your fight senseless, that it doesn't make sense, that all you're doing is lying. Why are you here in this space? Why don't you go get the people that don't like us or one of those pages and do that? Or how about the people in the movement that, Eric, stop talking so much about dads. You know what I've heard? Eric, when you talk about dads so much, you're being divisive. You need to stop it. We're never going to get anywhere because you're being divisive. I'm being divisive. 82.5 is the national average that these guys are not getting custody, that are fighting. 91% Texas. Those are some of the statistics. I'm being divisive. No. Sometimes when you start hitting the mark, guys, and you hit the truth, you'll find out the ones that really don't want to hear it. I'm not being divisive. I'm being me. I'm telling you what I think is on my mind. I think for too long, there is these guys that got so much to say, but you're holding back from saying it. Aren't you? I bet you'd really love to tell people what you think about this system. It'd probably, you'd have to put the caution explicit lyrics on it when a lot of these guys get started because they would finally tell you what they thought. But we have to be careful because of the optics. And no, you don't want to look like angry dads. We are angry dads. We're angry for a reason. I guarantee you, if there was some type of equality, these guys wouldn't be showing the anger that you constantly try to contribute to them, right? But they are rightfully angry. But there's so many different thoughts. I can even go on here. I can go on here. Let me go look. I haven't pulled up any of the comments, but I've seen people. All right, there's one. Danny Meyer, I can relate. Do you know how many times through the day I just say the random bullshit on my brain, and somebody says, "Oh, I know that feeling." Somebody's waiting for you to say it, and then they follow behind. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I hope you follow behind me. You don't need to cuss. When I say that about the explicit lyrics, do that to yourself in the mirror when you're alone. You are a loving dad. Tell people what you think about this system. You don't have to hold back. Tell people what you think about this system. Do you think this system's fair? Did you find justice in the family courts for you guys that were victims of male domestic violence? Did you find support? Do you find people that understand your story? Look at what we looked at just a couple of days ago, where that woman was beating that dad, screaming, grabbing his private, then started calling him a psychopath and everything. I mean, look at that. I played that video for a reason. And I'm going to tell you, that was one of the things that triggered me. There was a lot of that when I was watching. It was like, oh, it's got to go off. But I played it for that reason because I knew there would be people there to relate to it. Right? And it is traumatic. I apologize to anybody that gets on here that says I can relate, but it brings your trauma. But the only way we can put the past in the past is if we deal with it, right? And I struggle with it too. And it would make me feel really good when I do this from now on if I can come on here and just do it with you guys. Because that's the answer. Not these crooked politicians. Not the attorneys. Not the judges. Dads, you will be the answer to the fatherless crisis. You will be the answer to this family law debacle. You don't believe me. I know you don't. Let me tell you why these guys don't believe that when somebody says it. Because they've heard it for so long. And it's been one of my number one gripes with this community. Change is coming. Change is coming. It's coming. It's coming. What do you tell these guys when it don't get here? Well, let's do the rallies. Dude, I've been to so many of those rallies people invite us out to. Nobody. They're at work. Well, let's change the legislation. All right, go ahead. So people that get confused with that sometimes, they'll say, well, we got it in some of these states. Let me ask you, how strong was the lobbying in those states? How much money was behind it? A lot of those smaller states, they don't have the lobbying. Let's go to states like Texas and California and New York. Let's go see what the battle looks like. There's a ton of money there to pay those lobbyists to make sure any legislation that comes in there and represents me or you gets kiboshed. That's reality. So again, I say, it sucks. I don't think any of us wanted to be advocates. None of us wanted to be sit here dealing with this crap. Are you kidding? If you did, let me know, because I want to call you crazy. If you wanted to go through these instances, something wrong. Okay? Something wrong with you. I've talked about some of the generalities and the common things. If there's advocates in here that's done this stuff, I know that they'll relate to this. But the number one thing that we're told, talking politics, when they don't have an answer for you, Eric, you need to go educate the judges. I need to go educate people that went to school for family law, that work in it every day. Me, a dad, I need to go educate them on the horrible job that they're doing. Maybe if some of these people didn't have incentives, we would see this system change. Remember that part where I said, most of us, before we went through this, we had no idea about the rabbit hole. We're taking the red pill tonight. And once you take it, your life's never the same again. It's not. No matter how much you try to get away from this, there'll always be something there to connect you. But that's what we're doing. Taking that red pill. Because we're seeing the truth. We're seeing the truth. I've got some interesting things coming up. I really do. As a leader in this movement, I've been around for a very long time. Should be a partnership coming sometime soon. Yeah. Counseled with me not too long ago when I was going through some of this, and he said, Eric, you will never do this fight in the political arena. Now, for a guy that spent the past 3 years doing everything he could in the political arena, oh yeah, I was upset. It's like, how dare you? You've seen the stuff we've done. But I had to sit there and munch on that in my head, really consume it, really, really consume it there for a while, and said, he's right. That's the kind of friends I need, not the ones that tell me what I want to hear, but the ones that give me the truth. And I think we're going to have some more of the conversations like you saw tonight so we can equip our guys. Until I come back on, I mean, really, I have not felt this way in so long, man. I usually don't do the live podcast. I definitely don't come on by myself. I have a guest because I can ask a question and kind of sit back because I've been doing it for so long. There's not much I can talk about that I haven't already talked about. I did a good bit tonight that I haven't talked about. I still have repeated some stuff. Guys, you got to understand, if you hear me repeating something, it's probably because there might be somebody on here for the first time that hasn't heard it that needs to hear it. Social media is a funny thing. You know what? Almost 500,000 followers here on Dad Talk on Facebook. We hit 100,000 on Instagram. Go look at the numbers. How many people are getting to see it? That's really weird, right? That's why I say that like, sharing, and subscribing. We didn't get those numbers because people aren't here going through this. You hear me? The Dad Talk Today support group, in the last 4 months, 20,000 new parents. 20,000 new parents have joined. It is up to 25.2 thousand, and it is steadily growing. I want you to think about that. There's 25.2 thousand stories that we can only imagine what the details surrounding them are. The almost 500,000 here on Facebook, 100,000 on Instagram. It's not as big. I think it's like 13,000 YouTube. Think about that now. All these stories. And you know what's so sad? Is that's just a speck. Guys, watch it. Please join these shows. Some of this stuff will blow your mind too. A lot of you I have known for a very long time because you're loyal people and you believe in this movement, and you'll be here every time we do something. And it makes my face light up because I said, here they are. They support. And I notice you. Then there is a lot of new faces. There is. But one of the things that kind of, I don't know how to take it sometimes. You know, I was just this dad from Georgia that started this page. You got to understand, when I started Dad Talk, I had just lost my job. I didn't know what I was going to do. My industry is gone, man. The industry that I came from, my last 2 jobs, they're gone. My last 3 jobs, gone, actually. And all I had was a CDL. And I was a single father. I couldn't go over the road like some of those guys do. I had to run a route. That industry left. And I was thinking, what do I do now? What do I do now? Well, my job was in that truck. And when I was commuting, I was listening to podcasts. I was like you guys. When I started going through the family law stuff, I said, man, I wonder if there's any podcasts on this. Every once in a while there was. And I'm not taking a shot at you experts. I'm not. Promise you I'm not. Every once in a while you'd see a broadcast with them. But they're great researchers, but they stink. Running shows. Love you. If you think I'm talking about you, just call me so I can apologize. Because I know a lot of them, but there was just some of it, man. It was so dry. And even though we're getting out good material, you still got to be entertaining, because that will hold people in this community because they know what's going on. We've got to get the people before they go through it. We've got to educate our young men. Prevention's better than the cure. They are the answer for the next generation. At least, if it doesn't happen anytime soon for us, they can end it. We need to be reaching people on the outside, you know? And that was just kind of the thought. Man, I didn't mean to go that long. I got so much more built up. It feels nice. It feels nice. Gloves off. Excuse me if I come on here. I did this for a reason. I don't want to do the conferences. I don't want to do the politics. I'm one of you guys. Always have been. Just felt like I had to be somebody else to fight for this cause. And that really sucks. I'm going to do it my way. Because I believe in it. You know, some people will say, oh, look, it's ego. I've always struggled with self-confidence. Let me tell you something. That's not ego. That's confidence. There is nothing that if you don't put your mind to it, you can accomplish, guys. Because again, what did I tell you earlier? You do make a difference. The only thing holding you back is you. There's somebody watching right now. You might be the lost little cog in this movement that we've been waiting on. I'm hoping some of these conversations like this right here, the real shit, man, the real stuff. Can you feel it? Does it have a different feel to it? I couldn't come on there and do the same old things anymore. That's why this feels so good. Because I really, truly believe this is the direction that we've been needing. I do. I got some people I'm going to be doing it with. It's going to be fun. I promise you. It'll be entertaining. So, I mean, this is the most I've done dad talk. Shoo. Long, long time. You know, politicians, if you watch the show, and they do, trust me, I got several of them on this page. I've had, look, this is how ridiculous it is. Every once in a while, you've never seen somebody get so offended by a meme in your life. Every once in a while, there'll be a meme out there that's silly or something like, oh my God, this is the reason we're not getting anywhere. I can't believe you would post that right there. Stop doing, what does this have to do with that? And then I'm looking up there, and one of the people that's liking it or loving it is a politician. One of the good ones. Because they're real people too. The good ones are real people too. Let me say that. Okay. People are so scared to offend. We're the ones that should be offended right now that we're having to have this fight in the first place. We're afraid of offending people. Are we really? Are you guys afraid of offending people with what we're talking about here? Tell me. I'm offended. I've been offended. Okay? For damn good reason. Stop playing political theater. Yep. And going back to the rock and roll roots too, man. You guys check out that song. I'll play that on the way out, actually. I want you to listen to the lyrics of it. That's a band that I used to promote. Their name's Pandemic, actually. This is way before COVID. Pandemic, the name of the song is Be Alive, but it's talking about now, you know, to be alive. And then I used to do some stuff. You can see right there, the GNR. It's where I work with the drummer of Guns N' Roses, Steven Edler. I got him to sign it. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, man. That was the soundtrack to my childhood. The reason that I got my guitar, you guys haven't seen, the reason I got the guitar and the drums and the reason I picked that thing up right there is because I wanted to play Sweet Child of Mine. If I let people tell me it was ego and I didn't believe in myself, I never would have found myself working with one of my idols growing up. Got to take a picture. And then he had a band, and I knew one of the members was friends with me on Facebook. I was like, dude, I need to use that for dad talk because it reminds me of this fight, that intro song that you're hearing. So that's got Adler from Guns N' Roses, but it's called The One That You Hated. Listen to it. The one that you hated. I'm the one you didn't want to believe. I'm the mess you created. The one that, dude, if that's not this movement, brother, what is? Let's go back rock and roll. Ready to start a revolution. Yep. I know. There's people out there that think I'm doing crazy talk right now. Guys, to make a difference in the world, to be different, you have to be misunderstood. We dads have been misunderstood for a long time. A long time. People misunderestimate the importance that we have in this world. It's toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. Look at the fatherless statistics. I don't need to repeat them to you right now. Look at what's happening to these kids that don't have dads in their lives, and you keep telling yourself it's toxic masculinity. It just all boils back down to money. It's the only thing they care about, guys. Only thing. I'm sick of it. So sick of it. All right, man. Oh, burped. You guys ever drank Topo Chico? Show you some. My Topo Chico caps. I blame that on Robert Garza. I went out to Texas. I had never heard of this. I hate sparkling water, right? And that was something that they drank out there all the time. And I was like, When I got on a diet, I was wanting something that was carbonated, and I tried it. Oh my God, dude. I am hooked. I'm hooked. Never tried Topo Chico. You should sponsor the show, Topo Chico. You should. I've sponsored you. Got you in my glass right now. But we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. I've seen a lot of people pumped up. You want to see the birth of the movement? Or are you going to show up? Are you one of the dads that's going to be working tomorrow when we do this? If so, we'll have a replay at 8 p.m. Eastern. That sucks sometimes. I've gotten to go to each one of those time zones since I've been doing that. So I know how that confusing that can be sometimes when you hear these times. Like it's 10 a.m. Eastern. That's 9 o'clock Central. That's 8 o'clock Mountain. And that is 7 o'clock Pacific. Oh, that really sucks for you guys out there in California, huh? You know, it's hard to make that show. And let me tell you why. We're pulling the curtain all the way back, right? 10 o'clock in the morning. Most people are going to be at work and they can't tune into a podcast. They can go to TikTok because they can watch that for 30 seconds and go on to the next video. Dad Talks are going to take, we're an hour, 20 minutes in here right now. A lot of people don't have the time to do that throughout the day, especially when they are at work, right? So it wasn't the best time to pick the podcast. But that's why we're doing the replay. Most of the time, 8 o'clock at night, what's that? 5 o'clock Pacific or 4 o'clock Pacific. A lot of times people are off of work, but it also, there was times, many times, that every day of the week at 8 o'clock at night, there was a show going on here, or I was somewhere doing something with these, you know, the politics or whatever, what have you. And, you know, I need time with my family. You know, there's some of the sacrifice right there too. I'm already sacrificing retirement insurance money and all that, but the passion is what's got me here. But now I can get that episode. We can replay it. So that gets us a little time. So I would have to ask the audience. I know that's a horrible time to be playing that show, but when you like, share, and subscribe it, or if you can't make it until later on that night, anybody that got pumped up by that, I want to see you show up. I'll make my promise to you. You show up and I'll show up. Not what you've been seeing the past couple of years, what you saw tonight. Because this feels good. There is a lot of things men have been wanting to say to this world, and it's time we say it. No more being slaves to the system. I want you to crush the narratives that's used against you. If you own the weapons and the things that you're going to say about you, what do they have against you? There is a very powerful art. You're going to have to excuse me. Yes, I'm going to use language. I'll offend somebody. And I'm just, there is a very powerful thing in this world called, I don't give a shit. Now, there's times where you need to. There's other times where you just say, you know what? Sorry. This is what it is. This is what we're going to talk about, and that's how it's going to go. Right? If you don't like it, you don't have to be here. For any of those that want to say that dad's rights or father's rights is divisive, you guys need to stop it. You're the reason legislation ain't going to get passed. You don't have to be here. Go make your own thing. What's so funny is the people that show up and tell me how to do it because they have the right way to do it. And I don't see, why aren't you doing it? Don't tell me. You're the genius. Go do it. Right? This is what I want to do. Man, it feels good to be back. Love you guys. I'm sorry. This is one of those things you never know. One day you're ready to do it. The next day you're like, I don't want to look at it. And that was my fear. Even me and Mike was talking earlier. He's like, Eric, I hear it. You're fired up. I love it when you're fired up, but I know tomorrow you might not be. If we can do this, maybe I'm hoping it stays this way. I missed that. Random chats. You know, it's always screwed me as a podcast. You never know when I'm going to come on here. I even said that it was like 8 o'clock that we were going to start doing these podcasts. I just went a little bit early tonight. I was on phone with Mike and I was like, I got to go. I don't know if it's the preacher in me, man. I'm not a preacher, but I grew up in the Pentecostal church. It wasn't the boring. I don't know how you Baptists did it. I barely could stay awake on Sunday morning and Sunday nights when I was a kid. But the one thing, because they had some oomph behind it. Now let me tell you was gonna hear, that kind of stuff. So that's probably my style. Even though I said I wanted to be everything else, but if you don't have emotion when talking about these guys, something. I had so many people tell me, like, you can't attach to these stories. You've got to learn to let it go. You need to be able to leave your office, have a set schedule. At the end of the day, work stays there. This ain't work. It's work. I'd be getting paychecks. This is passion. And when I leave, it usually goes with me. It sucks, man. You go on here and you're talking to a grieving parent. Next thing you're in there trying to sit down and watch a movie with your wife or your kids. Or let me go take you out to eat. No idea what the toll that takes. Mainstream media can do it because they're always looking for the next sensational story. If they would cover some of this, we wouldn't have to. We wouldn't have to. I can show you so many stories that would make the Johnny Depp story look like child's play. But they're not Johnny Depp. He got ratings. We have put ratings and profits over mankind. Much like politicians, much like the family courts. They put money over you guys. How does that make you feel? Why do you keep supporting it? There's many people this last election that voted for the lesser of two evils. I have a stance. I'll be open-minded with you. Of course, yes, I'm conservative leaning. There's many times there's issues I look at on the other side and say, I might lean a little bit more towards that. I don't need to get into that. But it was one of those this past election, man. I looked at the people that was on that ticket and said, I don't believe in any of them. Any. I was so close to leaving that booth, man. So close. We got to stop voting for the lesser of two evils. Start speaking up. Where's our guys running for this? It really concerns me. I mean, Jeff Younger got out there and busted his ass running a campaign, and he had a very popular story. And the establishment came after him. That's the thing, guys. I talk about the good candidates. On both sides, they have what's called the establishment. It's where the money is. They've got certain key players in there that set up the racket, and they don't want anybody from the outside getting in. Let me tell you what happens in family law. See here, I said I was going to leave. Let me tell you what happens in family law. You'll get these guys that say, I'm going to do a shared parenting bill. I'm going to sponsor this legislation that you're talking about for these parents. And it looks good. Might be attorneys. A lot of times it is the attorneys because they try to tell you get an attorney legislator. It'll look better to pass it. What really happens? You're going to have to go in front of the speaker. You're going to have to go in front of other places. Well, guess what? Attorneys too. They know it's not going to make it out of there because they talk. They talk. But to keep your support, but to make people think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'll entertain it, but I know it's going to get the kibosh. It is that tactical. It is that evil. It is. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Sitting there in Texas with all of those parents in the Capitol. All those parents in the Capitol. I mean, I forget how many hours of testimony. It was all day long. There was only 8 people to oppose against it, and they all belonged to the lobbyists. You know what happened that day? Can I give you a funny story? Standing there all day, again, suit and tie in the hallway. Hey, everybody, we're at the Capitol, trying to do the thing because that was our media. And that was a big moment. That was the biggest moment I've had, a gathering of advocates that I've seen. Man, Texas, dude. Texas is amazing. But when we went to lunch, they came over and tried to hand me a pizza. I think I saw Mr. Fitzpatrick on here. See, that's what I said. I remember a lot of these advocates' names. I see them when they pop up down here. When we showed up in New Hampshire, there was one of the guests that knew that pizza was my favorite food. Never, I don't know that I had ever talked to him. I think that was when that's from where I remember your name. You come and brung those pizzas. I took those, man, and I'm going to tell you that was the most meaningful pizza I've had in my life. But that day, I am not going to turn down pizza, guys. I'm not. My favorite thing. God made it for a reason. You could offer, if I had one last meal on this earth, it would have to be pizza. I don't know if that was from watching so much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a kid. I've really thought about that. Everything was pizza, with Michelangelo. I don't know, but it was pizza. And that day, the lobbyists, the ones with the money on this politics, come and offer me a pizza. I think that's the only time in my life I didn't take the pizza. I wanted to throw the pizza back over there. I don't want you. No. I know what that pizza was bought with, right? Guys, get involved. Followthemoney.org. Followthemoney.org. I don't care what politician it is out there. Go put their name in. You see where they get their donations. Attorneys shouldn't be able to donate to judges' campaigns. Nope. Why are they? Go look at this, man. I mean, I was tracking the Pfizer donations and everything last election cycle. You want to know what or who you're talking to? That website, man. If you're an advocate and you want to learn politics, go look it up. It's enlightening. Very enlightening. They don't want you to know about that one, but they have to report those. Right? There's other ways to get around that. I was talking about the corruption played and how they know there's going to be somebody else that might put the kibosh on. They can get somebody else to donate that money so that their name don't show up. A lot of them do. We need to equip our guys with stuff like this. Oh, yeah. I used to think that. Wanted to equip them for legislation. We got to get our guys here to the dance before we can dance. Our guys are out there, but we've got to get them here to the dance. I tell you, if we'll take a second, we'll pause and say, let's get everybody here. One time. When has that ever happened? Let's get all of our guys here. One time. Feel it, man. I better get in there. I talk about detaching from this and going and spending time with my family. They haven't seen me do it like this in a long time. Probably like, where in the world is he? I'm amongst my peers, my brothers. And when it's on and when it's feeling good, there's no place outside of my kids and my family that I'd rather be. Right? Because you guys get me. I get you. So, all right, tomorrow. Have you left your voicemail yet? I don't think there's any way. You think tonight's show was a long podcast? Shoot. You think the other ones that we've done the past week was a long podcast? I think, the magic number has been about 4 or 5 voicemails that we can take per show, right? I was going to say, let me show you some, but I don't want to show you people's telephone numbers. So tomorrow, we got a lot of calls. I don't know that we'll get through all of it. That's going to be one that we'll have to have. I want you guys to show up because there's the other part about politics. This is what you're told when you go to talk for this movement. Don't make it about money. Don't talk about child support. If you talk about child support, they're not going to listen to you because they think you're just not wanting to pay child support. Don't talk about child support. Then I've talked to the politicians. Oh, you talk to them about child support. You're making it about money. Keep it about the kids. Let me tell you something. You remember those guys I told you that were at work? They can't do anything else because they're a slave to the system. They're having to donate something that's more precious than money. Time. We only get this thing one time. Guess what? Take all the money in the world and go buy the last minute that we just had. And you're not going to do it. I don't care how many trillions, gazillions, whatever. You're not going to be able to buy that last minute. But these guys are spending those hours, that time that you can't buy back at jobs most of them don't want to be at to support those kids. And you judges, attorneys, and politicians are taking it. Tell me not to take it about not to make it about money. Keep it about the children. His money is keeping it about the children because it cost his time with his children to get that damn money. How about that? You got a pipe to put that in and smoke it? Do it like Cheech and Chong. All right? Look, that's how it happens. I start making a little thing. All right, 762-441-0281. 762-441-0281. Tomorrow we will be back to take your calls about child support. Serious. Get them in. Get them in. Show up, support. And thank you for each and every single one of you that show up to these shows. I'm sure you'd rather be doing something else with your time. Because without you, we wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have made it to this point. 3.5 years ago, this was just an idea, and I didn't think there would be enough people to watch it, to care about it. I was just trying to see if there was anybody out there that knew what it was like to go through what I'm going through. I knew that dads had got it, bad and got the shaft inside family court. We've always known that. They got that on TV. That's everybody knows that. Just talk about family courts. People say, "Oh, dads get the short end of the stick," right? I didn't know it was like this. I didn't know it was like this. It's the most corrupt thing I've seen on the face of this freaking earth, man. And the more I find out, the further you go down the rabbit hole. So if you continue, if you show up tomorrow, be prepared. It's the red pill, right? And watch that documentary. That was a great documentary. Got a lot of my friends in it. All right, that is it. I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow. All right, man.
Never stay from with regret.